Cool. Hey everyone, my name is Matt. I mainly do AI research, but I work with another guy and we just build a lot of apps and projects on the side just for fun. And last year, my friend came up with an idea. He said, let's build the dumbest thing we possibly could think of. So we came up with this. It's an app on Android and iOS. You can go to the website ruffle.us if you want, and it just lets you send anonymous picture messages to any phone number. If they have the app, I'll show you what it's like to receive one. If it's big enough, you get a push notification. The Ruffle comes through, loads up. Now just pause it here quickly. This is the first time you see the image and it's all pixelated like this. So when we built our demo, we had a problem where being anonymous, you can receive some pretty obscene pictures at times, as you might imagine. And we wanted to try and solve the problem of how do you show a picture to a user without actually showing them the picture. So if you pay close attention to the dot, which is the stroke, we allowed the user to control how depixelated the image was, and so they could sort of half see a dick and then let it swing back if they wanted. So as you can see, the image pixelates out. If they lift their thumb up, it flicks back, so you can kind of escape really quickly. So we really wanted GIF support in this app. We built it in Cordova because I don't want to learn Objective-C and I don't like Java at all. So, and so I started hunting down GIF parsers and stuff to do with GIFs because obviously it's really hard to do the depixelation just straight in JavaScript because you can't do it with each frame and that sort of thing. So I found a few different parsers. The most popular one was a modified one by BuzzFeed. Let's see if I can pull that up. This is just an example of like the parsing of the GIF file.
Vegan.
It's just a giant like switch and a bunch of numbers all hand-coded, really hard to debug, and they made a lot of assumptions about whether or not you needed to use the canvas that they wanted and did all kinds of stuff like that. And I spent probably a few hours on this and banged my head against the wall. So then I thought, all right, why don't I write my own GIF parsing library, which would be, the worst mistake I made last year, I think. So to give you an idea, this is just a high-level view of the GIF format. Bear in mind that GIFs were made in '87, I think. So, and it's surprisingly survived the last 30 years almost of the internet and everything. Well, we're moving to WebM now and stuff, but things like people like Giphy using that. But this is essentially what a GIF file looks like. Being from so long ago, bytes were scarce, so they had these really convoluted methods for storing information. Everything you can see here, like the dotted lines, are all optional parts of the file. These crazy loops in loops where you only parse particular things if other things exist. The actual images in each GIF frame themselves are compressed in the most crazy type of compression that's really annoying to deal with. So I couldn't have done this without the help of this and a bunch of other different guys who painstakingly tried to help explain the GIF format. So after a few days of banging my head against the wall, I decided to create GIF fucked. Now the first problem I had was just parsing the file itself in that way you saw before, this crazy convoluted thing, and started looking at different binary parsing libraries, and the most common one used seems to be one called JDataView. This is just like an example of how you would use it. Basically, they give you a lot of low-level functions like grabbing integers or floats. Just hands up here if you've ever used array buffers and typed arrays in JavaScript. All right, so most people won't need to. I'll just quickly explain them. I've got like a heavy C background from years ago, and everything you create is specifically statically typed and you know how much memory you're going to use. But JavaScript being dynamic, you never do. But because it's the language that keeps on giving, they added statically typed stuff into you just because it's awesome. So it really helps with doing binary kind of parsing, or if you need to work with looping over huge arrays of numbers for whatever reason. Otherwise, you probably never need to touch them. But basically, they give you, in this library, a bunch of ways to low-level parse, small groups of bytes to pull out particular numbers if you need to. But then you just end up with this big fat file where you kind of have to do everything yourself anyway. So before writing the GIF parser, I wrote a binary file parser as well. So what I wanted to do was just be able to parse binary using array buffers just in a really nice schema-driven way. And so to fit the GIF spec, we can do things in here like requires, so you can check whether or not this next block of data needs to be pulled in. You can build your own parsers for different kinds of data. If it's bits you want to pull out, it deals with that. It's recursive, so you can put parts in parts in parts, so it can drill down. And it also has a loop functionality where you can return a pool to check whether or not you need to parse that same block again. And so giving that those kind of parts, I'll show you the GIF. How do I zoom in Slack? Sublime. Same. Yeah, so this is the full GIF schema. And personally, I think it looks kind of nice and concise. You can tell like where the bits come out. Each one of these variables represents one of those blocks from here. It takes care of looping, pulls all the frame data out, and if you needed to do anything, make any change, I find that's quite easy to work with. So once I built that, we can now parse the actual binary file to get all these blocks out. But that's only half the picture. You have to also decompress the frames. You use this kind of compression called LZW. And because we wanted to do this on mobile phones, we found that the other libraries, when they decompressed the GIF, took about a big GIF, could be 4 or 5 meg, took about 5 seconds to probably 30 seconds to do one GIF, which is totally unusable to a client. So I found some other decompressors and ported them to JavaScript. I'm not 100% sure about how the decompression works, but the thing I ended up with worked well. The other problem was that there's so many different subtle GIF format differences. So we just had to do trial and error and do a lot of testing with different GIFs in different formats and find little edge cases and stuff. But yeah, if you want to use this, it's pretty easy. It's just on Bower. All you need to do is load the URL up as an array buffer, create a new GIF from the array buffer, and then if you optionally decompress the frames if you want to use it. And by decompressing the frames, it automatically puts all the frames into a clamped array, which is what canvases use. So you can just push the whole array straight onto canvas to draw the GIFs whenever you like. So to give you an example, let's see if I can. Here's some horses, and here's a GIF. So obviously, having control of all the pictures now, you can do whatever you want, like play pause. You can grayscale the image, you can invert the colors, and just throw a quick convolutional edge detector in just for fun. But then you can see the effect that you get with the depixelation. So, yeah. And the pixelator works so simply. It's just 2 canvases. You render the GIF on the small canvas, and then you stretch it out and render it on the big canvas, and just set a couple of smoothing properties to off so it blows the pixels up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's me. So yeah, if anybody had any questions, shoot. Yo.
GIF's a lossy format, so it's decompression slightly, like it tells it W.
Yeah, and it works off a color table.
Yeah, that's right.
So
were there any shortcuts you could take when you were decompressing?
If there is, I didn't find any. Yeah. If you find one, tell me. But we're actually looking at React Native, and then I'll probably build WebM into it so I can just stitch this whole problem. My honest opinion is if you want to work with GIFs, don't do something else. They're just really annoying on so many levels. And being on a phone too, they're so large. We've recently integrated the app with Giphy as well, so you can look up the GIFs, so you can reply anonymously and with your fun responses or whatever. So yeah. Anyone else?
How many downloads do you have?
Right now we've got about 3,000 users. We haven't really done any publication or anything yet. We've been on the top of a few subreddits for a while before we get kicked off. But yeah, we're just still experimenting with features before we want to do any real push. The next thing we want to build is group ruffling. So picture a kid in a grade 12 classroom just ruffling the whole class in one hit or something, and yeah, that's what we're aiming for.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
So you're taking disruptive software to a different place?
Yeah, we want to.
Literally just
we want to low-mo so disrupt the classroom.
Do you have any stats on how many penises have gone through?
It's funny, we did a web version test that quickly got the attention of the cops, which I found interesting. Because we had no blocking features in that little demo, which you had to pull down. This has a lot of, you can block your phone completely, you can block individual people from through the ruffles. There's all kinds of, to get through, to give you an idea, it took longer to get this approved on the App Store than it did to build the app. Just through constant angry phone calls to California, which was fun. But yeah, in that first version, we did run a porn skin thing through the photos, and it was surprisingly only about 30%. Yeah.
I would have gone with
So this is the best piece of computer engineering I've ever seen in my life. This is amazing. My question was actually going to be, how did you get it approved? But I think this kind of answered that.
We ended up going to the appeals group, and their biggest issue wasn't the anonymity. It was at first, but it was the SMS system. So if you don't have Ruffle, you get an SMS trying to drive you to the app. And they didn't like that. So just between us, we turned it off for the review process, and then we turned it back on. And now the last update, we left it on to see what happened, and I think they're just cool with it now. So yeah.
It seems like the only way to get anything approved.
Yeah.
I reckon that there's going to be a big chunk of apps on the App Store that have code if Apple turn a couple things on.
I have keys in Heroku that I named that just to quickly change stuff. Yeah.
So you made me confirm my phone number when I signed up. Is that another security thing they made you do?
So again, confirm your phone number.
Okay, I just installed the app and had it.
Oh yeah, so we need to know how to get a Ruffle to you and prove that it's you. So the number entry is simply just so we have your number attached to an inbox that can receive Ruffles. But we have a rolling database, so Ruffles get deleted within 7 days. That's more of a cost choice than any other reason.
That sounds really sketchy.
Yeah.
How'd you get a 12 plus rating?
Google just lets parser shit go through. They don't care. Apple, they wanted 17 plus on iOS. One thing with the phone number, that was a feature I did want to quickly talk about if I had time, was we're using a tool called branch.io. I think it's branch.io. Which is kind of a marketing thing, but I had this deep linking tool we could use. So when we drive the SMS to a user who hasn't got the app, the link they click, when they go through, they get to bypass the number section of verification, just takes you straight in. Because we make the assumption that the SMS system knows the number, and so it's sent to the correct one. So if the key matches, we can auto-sign them up pretty safely. So if you do ruffle somebody, they won't have to sign up if they get driven to the app that way. So that's kind of cool if you're into apps trying to convert.
Deep linking is really, really easy to do in React Native. It's really nice.
Yeah, well, yeah, this was really cool too. It just, I don't want to talk about this, but you pretty much just hook an event on load and it gives you some data. They do all the fingerprinting for you on the phone, so they tell you what OS it's got and whatever. So yeah. Cool. Anything else? No?